Hello and welcome to another Fiz-Tech video. Today we will be unboxing the NEV-RAH IoT Enclosure by Fiz-Tech. This enclosure will fit a Sensecap M1 hotspot, as well as a few others that are small enough profiles such as the Kerlink and COTX devices. We will begin by unboxing this and just going through the regular installation and setup process. Upon opening the box, you will be greeted by the enclosure. It will have hinges on the right side, and all the screws should be pretty much unthreaded, so you can open it up directly right then and there. All the accessories are included inside, except for the PoE if you have the Sensecap model. The PoE is boxed separately in a box similar to this, and will come with the power injector and then the power splitter. Inside you have the Ethernet gland, the included stock antenna, various tools, some brackets for the mounts, and then the U-bolts themselves as well. And then last, the pigtail. That's what's included in this kit. We will now proceed with the installation. First thing we're going to do is we're going to get to know this enclosure and where everything goes. So you have two options. You can either put the Sensecap as is like this, and then the PoE like this, or the other way around, such as this, and over here. Now, we are going to go ahead and do all this a bit later once we get all the cables such as the Ethernet installed and the pigtail, but it will fit all perfectly in this enclosure. It's very tight, but it works, and it's very lightweight, very discreet. And if you have a Kerlink, it would just go in here like this, and you would have a different PoE, such as this small little tail, or actually, sorry, it would be this one. This one's actually on the other end, and you would use the included Kerlink power wall adapter on this side. I'll show you that later as well. Now, you do have also the option to have this plate here. You can choose to remove it or keep it in. The Sensecap will fit in there with it in, but if you want a little bit extra space, you can take it out. But this plate is for DIY, such as maybe you have a bigger device that won't fit in here with its enclosure or already included, indoor case. And you strip it down, you know what you're doing, and you can basically mount the PCB board on this plate. Now, you will need some risers for that, and you will pretty much need to know what you are doing to accomplish this. So that's for advanced users. Otherwise, you are placing the device directly inside. Now, we are going to begin with the Ethernet gland on the bottom here. You will take your tool set that was included, and you are going to use the 12mm to remove this middle nut on the very bottom of the enclosure. This is the only placement that the PoE gland will go. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. The nut is now off, and we have our PoE. We're going ahead and unscrew every little piece off of this PoE because we need it in little pieces so we can assemble it later on. And it is there, and then we have a little rubber gasket right here, and we're going to keep it like that. Then we're going to feed this up and through there. And actually, I did forget one thing. Hopefully this will remind people, but there's actually a nut right here, and we're gonna screw that off and out. Now typically this is gonna go on the other side, however, just due to the manufacturing, it will not thread correctly because of these standoffs right here on the bottom. I'm gonna go and try to attempt to get it threaded, but it's probably not going to stay threaded, and if that happens, do not fret. It will all be fine. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to be able to get that threaded, but let me see when that peeks out, and we'll push it as tightly as possible up against the wall. Gotten that as tight as possible, that hand tight as I feel comfortable with. Now I did kind of thread it, but not really actually. It does have a bit of movement. I don't think that's actually threaded, but now it's lodged in there at least. But just don't, that's never actually going to thread, just due to the standoffs. Next, we will get an Ethernet cable, and typically this is going to be one of your last steps, but I'm going to show it here right now just so you have the practice. Now if you have an Ethernet with one of these guards, it's going to have to be snipped off. Just get rid of it, get some scissors or snips and get rid of it, otherwise it's going to interfere. It's going to make your life very miserable. We're gonna head and get our snips and snip this off. There, now it's gone. This is gonna help us tremendously. We're going to take the bottom piece and we're gonna thread it through with the round side going down. That's through. I'm going to take this piece with the teeth going down. Of course, you should see a little rubber gasket right here. And then we're going to take our other rubber gasket and put it right between. It should be cut kind of like this with some space so you can wrap it around. I tried to keep that in shot, but it did not go well. Those should feed, that gasket should feed up there. And then we're gonna take this, plug it in, start threading this, and actually I'm gonna do this the other way around. I don't want to thread this first. We're actually going to thread this a little bit, this bottom piece. Just a little bit, get it on there, and then we're going to thread this piece, and it's going to get very tight, and that's because that rubber gasket is being pushed down, and as we screw this bottom piece, it's actually, those teeth are getting pushed in as well. So if you ever want to take this apart, those teeth are going to be pressed into the Ethernet, because that is how it gets its seal. So there you have it. There's the Ethernet part. Like I said, this will probably be one of your last steps, but I went and showed it right here. We are now going to move on to the pigtail. So that's going to be on the top side. We're going to get our tools again and get our 12 millimeter. And we're gonna go ahead and open up, sorry, it's gonna be either left one or right one, doesn't matter, it depends which way you have your Sensecap. I'm gonna go for the left side this time. You got it out, and now we're going to feed our pigtail. And this is probably one of the most difficult parts. Actually, I almost forgot again. We have some additions that we need to take off here. So just unscrew this nut, as well as get this spacer out. These will go on later. You will have your seal visible right here. Now we're going to feed it through, and this is probably the most time-consuming, in my opinion, part of this install. It is kind of difficult to get the thread started, especially by hand. Just bear with it and start twisting it to thread it in. And actually, this one is actually one of my most easier ones. Actually, this is going quite well. I was actually planning to use this wrench to get it started. Actually, we will need the 14mm for that. So if you have any trouble, just use the tools provided to kind of get slowly start the thread. But this one's actually going in quite well. And unlike the other ones, I will keep on filming this. Because this is very time consuming. I'm actually starting to get to a point to where it is locking up. Oh, never mind. There we go, it's going. And then once you got it kind of hand tight, at least with little pincer fingers, we're gonna go on the other side, use that 14 and start tightening it a little bit more. Make sure we get a nice, again, hand tight. You will want to make sure it is nice and grippy, because if you screw in your antenna later on, you want to make sure this doesn't also start to de-thread. So that's as tight as I am comfortable with. And the last thing you're gonna do is kind of put this little gasket spacer on. Now that we got those on, let's go ahead and start the install of the hotspot itself. In this demonstration, we're going to go ahead and use the Sensecap. And because I chose the left side up here, it's going to go in like this. If it was right side pigtail, then we would flip it over and do it like this. But we're gonna go ahead and do it like this. We're gonna put this up here. And actually, I kind of forgot a critical part of this, because this is actually thicker cable than what our prototypes were. We're gonna actually run this cable beneath the plate. So we're going to take this plate off at this time and run the cable behind it. Alright, we have unscrewed the faceplate. We're going to take it out here, and we're just going to feed this cable down. And it is going to get tight, like I said earlier, but do not fret. We're going to push down on this. And then we are going to rescrew the screws, or if you want to, you can keep it removed, but I like to put in the plate again, just to have that forced cable management. And you most certainly do not need to over tighten these screws. You can leave them a bit loose just to allow them, the plate to have a little bit of spring action with the Ethernet. I'm having a little bit of trouble getting this screw back in. Let's try a different method here. There we go. There we go. Now we have a little bit of wobbly, but that's fine. It's just there for cable management. Alright, now we are going to place our Sensecap in here, along with our PoE splitter. Then we gotta connect that up. We're going to loop the Ethernet, or sorry, the coaxial pigtail, thread it in. And how you do the cable management at this point is kind of up to your preference. Like I said, it's going to be pretty tight, but it will work. I'm actually going to plug all these in first. There we go. There we go. Perfect. I'm actually going to move. Nope, I'm going to keep those on the inside. And so this PoE is kind of pushing up on the RJ45, but we close it and it is just perfect. Once you lock it down, you shouldn't hear any rattling, if any at all. Maybe you have some, depending on how you power manage or cable management this, but this is pretty much it. Give you a little bit of a view of how I did this. Yours could be a bit different depending on how you wish to do it. Before you ever lock it up, make sure to check the power and that everything works. And then we're going to close it up here. And then we will continue with the mounting brackets and the antenna. We now have all of the screws screwed in and the enclosure is now secure and tightened. You should have that rubber gasket all the way around, sealing it from the harsh weather. And you remember, just make sure these are just hand tight. You do not need to go anything further than hand tight. We're going to go back up at the top, and we're going to go ahead and add our antenna. And actually, you may need to apply some pressure to get the thread started. There we go. That's tight. Remember, I did not use the nut I just used this single one, and actually, as you can see with this fit, there is actually a space there. So I may actually want to remove this and put that nut back on. Now that I'm seeing it with this particular variant. Actually, there we go. Now you may want to play with this and make sure, because actually that looks like a bit too much. So I may actually, instead of doing that, choose to use weather sealing tape around that. But in any case, even if you do get a gap, it shouldn't be a problem at all. Remember, you are sealed in the bottom here. So if you have some kind of tape, tape that up. Otherwise, you should be able to get away with putting that on there. Let's actually go ahead and try without that little piece. There we go. Ooh, actually, that looks like it will do. Let me get my 14 here. Actually, I don't think my 14 will work. Nope, it will need to be a 16. But let's go ahead and try that. And I actually think that might be secure. So either way you choose it, you may even have a different antenna completely with slightly different variances, but these are here to help. We're gonna go ahead and move on now to the mounts. Now these mounts are these little clamps right here and right here. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen them up a little bit. And just a little bit for now. We're going to take these pieces right here, and we're going to take it all the way out. And we're going to add it. Sorry, it's actually the wrong way. It's going to be like this. I believe there's different ways you can do these, but this is the primary way. Got it nice and hand tight. And you will need to kind of adjust it. It's going to be a little awkward, especially if you have a little bit of OCD, getting it kind of lined up and tight in the right position where everything is symmetrical. I'm gonna go ahead and do this other side now. Now that it's off, we are going to go ahead and add it through. Nice and tight. And there we have it. There is the starting of our brackets. Next, we're going to take our U-bolts. And this is where and when you would attach it to a pole mount. I do not have one of these right here, so you can either feed it through like this, and sorry, camera is not cooperating. Maybe we can zoom out here. You can feed it through this, like this way, and have it through there, or you can have it going this way too. Whichever way you preference in that environment, it's up to you. It's light enough to not really matter. But feed it through here, and then this is where, it's actually like this. And this is where your pole would be feeding through. And you just use the nuts to tighten it up on the other side. Now I'm going to forego doing the other side just for the sake of time. But this is the NEV-RAH enclosure, and you are pretty much all set up. You will have on the other end this PoE injector if you have a Sensecap or USB-C type. If you have a Kerlink, again, this is very similar setup. You actually get a bit more room, and I'm not going to go ahead and open it up, but I will show you that it is actually kind of very similar to the setup. And then you would have this on the other end with your included DC wall jack pushing power through the Ethernet to the Kerlink device. Now I'm going to go show you outside a completed setup in all its glory.